Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Olga. I am a relationship coach and advanced Faster EFT practitioner. And today I'm very excited to have a company of gorgeous Ilka, who is actually also advanced Faster EFT practitioner, but she's a parenting coach. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with her because we're going to touch up on a few juicy topics, all Faster EFT related, but we'll talk both about parenting and relationships because she is a happy, successful study case in terms of she's one who used Faster EFT in her own marriage and she made changes. So I'm really curious about that because a lot of women that I work with, they ask questions about this, right? So if they're in a relationship, how can I apply it? What can you do to make changes? And so I'm kind of like an Oprah of Faster EFT. I like finding successful, happy cases and showcase it to people because people need to hear those stories. So let me turn the mic to Ilka so she can introduce herself a little bit and tell us a couple of words about herself.
Thank you so much, Olga. I'm so happy to be here and share about my journey of 23 years of marriage now. And three children, 2 are adults, and one's just about to drive, 17. And my business is the Awakened Parent. So yes, I'm a parenting mentor and coach and empower women to have, show up as the best parent they can be for their kids.
Mm-hmm. So, fantastic. Yeah. So first question that I actually had for you is 23 years, Mama Mia. That's a lot. What's your secret, Ilka?
Well, it has been an amazing journey.
Okay, guys, there's going to be a lot of hashtag macroscopic truth here, so prepare to hear.
Yeah, definitely. And I can totally relate to someone I love is Esther Perel. She talks a lot about relationships, and she said that she once said she had to become 3 different people to stay in her marriage. And I think that that's definitely been the case for me. I've had to go through 3 kind of identity, almost shedding of skin, changing, totally changing who I am to in a positive way. And Faster EFT certainly helped me in the last stage of that. But the first 7 years of my marriage, probably, I was like a small child. Yeah. I could turn into a 4-year-old at the drop of a hat, and it was not pretty. It really wasn't pretty. I didn't like the way I was, but I did not know how to change it. And so I really, I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of pain and hurt that I hadn't resolved. It was really, and at the time I did not know this, but it was really all about my own childhood pain and hurt.
Right.
And, I would often project it onto my kids, onto my husband. And it really was very messy and horrible. And I did a lot of things I'm not very proud of. In those first 7 years, even the first 14 years. And then eventually, nearly 7 years ago, 6 years ago now, I found Faster EFT, and it totally changed my life.
Wonderful.
Other things helped me along the way, but it was the biggest shifts happened with that.
Yeah, and I think the question that I, really am very curious about, and I wanted to ask you, and a lot of my listeners are curious about, is how is that tapping on your face can change your marriage, right? How is that tapping on your face and saying very often negative things can change your marriage? And so, of course, this is something that, I can talk about for hours. But I'm always curious to hear the answer from someone who actually went through that experience. So if you would have 2-3 minutes to explain that to someone who maybe not very familiar with Faster EFT, or who's just genuinely curious about how does it work, what would you say?
That's such a good question. Yes, tapping on our face. I mean, it does seem like amazing to think that just this simple tool of tapping on your face could make such a huge difference. But of course, Faster EFT is it's quite it is that simple, but it's also about going to the core of where these issues began. And I think for me, it was so amazing to actually, the biggest thing was to realize I wasn't crazy, because a lot of probably the things that were very painful and hurtful for me didn't make a lot of sense. The way I would, suddenly be explosively angry. It just didn't make sense to me. And so when my husband would reflect back to me sometimes, even that, you're crazy,
No, you're crazy.
I couldn't really disagree. I wanted to disagree. But I felt kind of crazy inside.
Yeah.
And so when I got to Faster EFT, suddenly there was a context for why I do the things that I do. And not just that, because that in itself was incredible. But there was also a way to release it, which was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. Because when people are going through difficult times, like especially because I work with women who are single or went through divorce or separation. And so society will teach us, well, go get a new haircut, buy yourself a new pair of shoes, get a glass of wine, go hang out with your girlfriends, watch Netflix. Some of these things are actually good, and I recommend it too. And they do bring it temporarily. Now, what they don't do is they don't get to the root of the problem and actually help you change the way you feel, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that's what tapping does. That's what Faster EFT does. It helps you change the way you feel.
That's it. It totally helps you change the way you feel. And you gotta understand, when I first came to Faster EFT, one of my memories I often talk about is that I was working with Kim, my practitioner, and she was like, at the end of the session, going, now how do you want to feel, Ilka? Like, how do you want this to be? And asking the kind of questions that we ask about the future and what you want that to look like and whatever. And I was like, I really had not ever kind of considered these kind of lines of questioning back then. This is very early in the piece, and she was like trying to spell it out to me. She said, what about, like, it starts with S and it's all, self-love. She had to really kind of spell it out to me. And I kind of looked at her and went, wow, yeah, that would be nice. Like, how do you do that? Right. This is I had no concept of what that would feel like, or and really that's because of the mental chatter I had going on in my head. I was very in my head. If I came down into my body, I'd often go into a fight, flight, freeze response. So I would get anxiety and things like that. So I stayed up in my head. So this, to release all of that, like the difference of me now and what I used to be like is just chalk and cheese.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So ladies, if you are listening and if there's a part of you say something like, well, I can't change, I am who I am, throw it away right now. Ilka is your perfect role model to say that you can change just about anything that you want to change about yourself, right? It's that neuroplasticity that is the biggest discovery of the last 20 years of the whole humanity, probably, right? If you want to get more confident, just Google neuroplasticity, and what you see is that you can change just about anything about yourself.
Yeah. So yes, you can. And I would not have believed it back then. I'd carried those issues around for 42 years. And yes, definitely I'd been seeking a lot of different things and gone and done a lot of alternative therapies. And I had made some changes. As I said, and I'd been quite personally responsible to go and do those things. So even when I came to Faster EFT, I knew I was the one who had to change, which is a good starting point.
Which I think is huge, exactly.
But stop trying to change my husband.
Right. So
I did at the start.
Absolutely. So if you're listening to this, ladies, and you think, oh, I need to change my husband, right? This is your wake-up call. Because in case of Ilka, she changed and her marriage changed. In case of Olga, I changed and my marriage also changed, right? So it really doesn't matter essentially if you stay in the same marriage or if you change your husband. What matters is that you're so aligned with yourself and your values that the other relationship also will get aligned, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, so tell me just a little bit about your husband's journey through it. Did he ever done any tapping? What was his role in this process? Because I refuse to believe that as you were changing, as you were growing, going through all these changes, that he didn't experience any transformation at all. So in other words, how do the women know that the changes that they're experiencing currently with their husband or in him, right? So we have established that we cannot change him. We have established that everybody's responsible for their part of the journey. But for them kind of making some observations, how do they know that there is hope and there are some changes happening? And then maybe you can share just a little bit about from your personal experience, if you don't mind.
I would love to. And I often get asked this because my husband is your typical Australian male. What
does that mean? I don't know what typical Australian.
Exactly. What does that mean? I'll try and paint a little picture here. He likes fishing. He likes watching the rugby. His interests are in, he loves his work. He works in construction. He gets dressed up in his boots and his high visibility gear every day. He is not, to get him to watch something like Eckhart Tolle, he might fall asleep in about the first 5 minutes. So I just want to say this because sometimes people go, oh, well, that's okay for you. You're married to some spiritual
Robert Smith, whatever.
Well, just so you know, I am not. My husband, he grew up in a Christian family, so where he went to church every Sunday. He has a kind of Yoda-istic, I don't know, I call him like my Yoda because he tends to stay pretty calm. He goes along with life fairly easily. So he came and first, of course, when you first meet someone, you're often attracted to the thing in them that you don't have in yourself. And for me, probably there was a lot of uncertainty in my life. It was very different to his life. So perhaps he was attracted to, the kind of ups and downs of my life and the craziness, which is interesting that the first initial attraction was probably that my life was pretty exciting and there's always stuff going on. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial family where there was lots of challenges. And anyway, so just to paint that little picture for people, but he really it was very frustrating for me when I would get into these. One of my biggest mantras was probably "you don't understand," which came again from this 4-year-old me. This 4-year-old me, Daddy doesn't understand, and so that was quite a difficult one to break. That program, but Faster EFT really helped me with that. There was some other big programs that I carried around, and I would kind of throw them at him. And so we had some tumultuous times, and I'll get into either fighting or wanting to slam a door and walk down the road kind of thing, or drive off in the car. So, and he would just stay calm, and this used to really frustrate me as well, because I kind of want to draw him into my pain, my drama, and of course, and he just continued to love me, which is probably why we're still together, because he was kind of he often would just walk off from me when I'd get into a bit of craziness, which really, really was hard, because that was kind of that abandonment I felt as a child, coming in again. So you start to get a real handle on these programs that you're running with Faster EFT, which is pretty pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So what you've got to understand, when I came to Faster EFT, is my husband had experienced this kind of tumultuous thing, and when I would come into my period, I would usually get worse. So that then I could like fly off the handle just at things that were just like, I watched a comedian yesterday and she was talking about how women can do that. We can just like create drama out of thin air. We should, get awards for it. And, we're all good kind of, I'd learned as a child to be manipulative emotionally as well. And I had to own up to that. So you've got to understand, that this has been going on. When I got to Faster EFT, we've been married like 18 years or something, because we're 23 now. So this has been going on for 18 years. So I don't blame my husband that it took him a while to really think that the changes would last. So here I am doing this work, and I was so excited about it too, because inside myself I could feel the changes so strongly, and yet he was kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop in the beginning, right? In the beginning. And when I tell people about this, I started to really have a think about it, and I thought, you know what, it took about 2 years for him to really go, wow, now the changes are starting to be permanent, because he could really see. And look, in the beginning, I did relapse back into things every now and again, and I had to go back and tap and stuff like this. This was 42 years of programming I was changing. So 2 years is not very long. Like we go, like to do this work on yourself, and I continue to do it, of course. And every now and again, just the tone of his voice or something like that can still trigger me a little bit. But I'm just so aware of it these days, and I just do the process. So it did take him a while to come around, but he really did see the changes, and he really did, it felt like he was changing. You're right, Olga. Like I can't tell you whether he did change or not, because it's always coming through my filter. But it did feel like he was changing as well. And of course, he started to learn some of these concepts, and every now and again, he'd let me tap on him for pain or something like that. But I've never tapped on him for many really kind of big things. A couple of times I've tapped on him for some stuff that's a bit bigger.
It also depends on, number one, how he records stress, right? So if he's generally chill and peaceful, and he has strong faith, he might not just have a lot of stress to process, period.
Exactly. He doesn't.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And then, it's really fascinating to listen to you speak, because what even inspired you to start Faster EFT? Were you at the place in your marriage when things were really falling apart? Did he ever threaten you with divorce or anything like that? What did happen?
Oh, no, he wouldn't have done that. One of the biggest stresses for me in my life, as I said, we were in an entrepreneurial family. We worked for my family, and really coping with my father was quite ill, and also had problems with other things that we won't go into. I've changed a lot of how I represent that in my mind as well now, of course, through Faster EFT. But that was where the major stressor was for us in our relationship. And then the stress that I felt through that, I would often project onto. So most people, by the time they're kind of 18, they've left home. I was still in our family business with my family every day and my husband worked with my family for 15, 16 years. Okay. So the stresses were in those things, and my father was very, very ill towards the last 5 years before I got to Faster EFT. So so we had some big things happen, and then I would get so stressed around that I would often be up to here with stress. So I was projecting it all over the place, and not knowing how to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that gives a lot
I
of
say that.
hope to people who are listening and who are kind of wondering, is there hope to the marriage? And so if you would speak to a woman who is in a position to where she's considering whether she should stay or where she should go, or what else is next, what advice would you give her to try to work out her marriage and relationship?
Well, first of all, I think to seek some support from somebody who, like a Faster EFT practitioner. Really, it's very difficult when you're in deep kind of issues like that to see your own stuff.
Right.
And I was a person who really thought I could do everything myself when I first came to Faster EFT. I was like one of those, troopers. It's like that was another program that really did not serve me at all. And now looking back, I could not have done it without the practitioners I worked with in the beginning. I just have so much gratitude for them and for, what they opened my eyes to and how they helped me. Because I had blind spots. Our programming is from childhood, so it is so innate to us, we can't see it.
We can't see it, right. And the way that I explain it to my clients, I say, when you are in the picture, you cannot just see the picture from outside because you're so in that problem. And
Yes.
I don't want to misguide people and tell them that it takes 2 or 3 sessions to clear it out, but sometimes it gives you just a push that you need to figure things out, right? Like for me personally,
definitely.
It took me 2 or 3 years working consistently with a practitioner. Now, I didn't do it weekly. Maybe the first couple of months I did weekly, and then I did it monthly, and then maybe every 2 months or so. But what I want to help people understand is that it's not like a therapy where you have to do it for the rest of your life. But it's more like
definitely not.
Right.
Yes.
You can clear your stuff, go in, get it done with, and then you can, get some support. Like I would still see my practitioner, but maybe 2 or 3 times a year. That's really all that I need right now when it comes to tapping.
Yeah.
I have skill. You probably have similar experience too. You can actually deal with your stuff. Sometimes you don't need to deal with this because sometimes something triggers you and you go like, do I need to tap on it? Nah, it's not a big deal. Just let it go, right? Just totally let it go.
Exactly. But in the beginning, it was not like that at all. Like I had so much stuff that I just was in a fog of what to even start with. I mean, like I said, I didn't even know what self-love, what is that? Like,
what is that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about your parenting business and what kind of things do you help parents with in terms of the challenges they have with children? Like what would you say the top, 3 problems or something like that that parents come to you with, and how is Faster EFT even helpful?
Yeah, well, it's Faster EFT is helpful for parents in the same way it's helpful for relationships and for any issue or problem, because it really goes to the core of where it is. So parents come to us with all sorts of issues, just things around bedtime, getting their kids to go to bed. Some of the top issues are frustrations with their children's behaviour. For certain things, screen stuff is quite a big issue. There's like I'm trying to think of the clients I'm working with now. Their kids are going onto high school, or they might be leaving home even. So the empty nest kind of stuff. There's lots of different issues that parents face. Children, their children are feeling anxious and depressed, and that's really worrying to them. So that's a big issue as well. And so Faster EFT can really help a parent to release the core of why that issue worries them so much or bothers them so much, and then And then you think, well, how does that help? Because the child has not changed.
Right. That's what I was kind of wondering.
Yeah. So, but you know, if you're into conscious parenting and or peaceful parenting, which is some of the new language that's out there, you know, it's all about meeting the child where they're at, being able to speak to them in a calm way, really being open to being present with your children and listening to them. And I know myself that when I was kind of stressed up to here, I could read all the conscious parenting books under the sun and logically understand that I should get down on the same level as my child and speak to them in a calm voice and all of those things. I could logically understand that. But because I was carrying so much of my own pain around, often I could kind of logically understand it, but to carry it out, especially when mums have got lots of stuff to do. They're busy people. They've got lots of other things they've got to be concerned with during the day. And often you don't do the things that you would love to be doing more regularly with your children because for starters, but then the underlying stuff that comes up when you hear your child's voice, for example, or you just, see them crying, their emotional state, and something is triggered way back in your past that says, well, I was a crying child once and I didn't get any help, so today you're not going to get any either. These programs, they're like, the parents who come to us are just so incredible because it takes so much courage to admit to that. To admit that you sometimes don't have, you can't be with your child in the way that you want to be. But I certainly experienced this many, many times, and I'd read all the books. I wanted to be a peaceful parent, but there was this stuff inside of me that stopped me from doing that. At the level I wanted to do that.
And you're absolutely right. I think it is very similar in both, intimate relationships, relationship with your kids, because those are very close quarters, right? Those are people.
You always say you can't divorce your children.
Right. You divorce your children and well, they will go eventually, but they are your children. You actually don't want to divorce them. You want to build a relationship with them, right? Especially now while you can, while they're still young or while they're still living in your house. And so I think this is such a beautiful work that you do. And you're right, it does take a lot of courage to admit it. I think it's even easier to look for relationship marriage kind of help than, your parent kid, because it's
definitely.
It's a little different.
Not so much shame to be mad at your husband. But to, be deflating a small child, nobody wants to really admit to that. But
exactly, right. So I just really want to applaud you for, for bringing it up and for having this conversation. And another piece that you mentioned that I think is very, very crucial is how you can have all the information in the world, right? You can read and understand and logically agree with all of this. But it's the implementing and integrating it that was actually gonna, that's where the rubber meets the road. And so this is why, I always, whether I work with, parents who are looking for help with kids or they have any kind of relationships, I will highly recommend to find a practitioner who can deal with subconscious mind, right? Because talk therapy has some benefits and it helps you understand, just kind of like you said, before you came to Faster EFT, you understood a lot of things, right? But it's the changing piece. When you don't just have a conversation, when you don't just have a support, but somebody can help you understand some of your repeating patterns, uncover them and actually release them, that's what absolutely brilliant, and it costs millions and it's life-changing, right?
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So when you work with parents, do you tap on children at all, or it's mostly emotional work with parents?
I like to work with the parents first, definitely. And I make a point of that because children Well, their brains, we talked about neuroplasticity. Their brains are just so incredibly neuroplastic. This came through experience, really, because in the beginning of my Faster EFT journey, I did tap with children, but the parent would normally come to me and say, can you please, and it's kind of like, can you please fix my child? You know? And then the world will be better. And so my experience was that this happened quite a number of times, that the parent would say, my child has, to kind of put it into context, has an 8 out of 10 in anxiety or an 8 out of 10 in worry. And then I would go, and one of our ways of testing is doing that kind of rating on a child, because I would ask the parents this question, and they would get the child, and I seriously couldn't get it up past a 2. Like I would say, is it worse than a 2 out of 10? And they would go, no, not really. So sometimes this is where projection is coming in. Your own fears. You've got to understand that your brain has been on the planet for 42, for how many years? Like if you're a young parent, 20 years, 30 years, picking up programming. Your child's only been on the planet for 6 years.
Exactly. Not only that, but I think projections need to be taught in elementary school. Should be called projections. Yeah. And people need help understanding and differentiating between their own emotions and emotions of other people, and how they project the hell out of themselves pretty much all the time, right?
Pretty much all the time.
Unless you are a conscious parent, and you can say, what is my part in it, right? Because like many people will tell me, Olga, if you go through divorce, your kids are gonna be broken. Nobody gonna love them more than the dad loved them. Like the kids are just gonna be totally ruined. And my kids are pretty darn happy kids, not only that they're happy, but right now they actually raised in a family that they can witness true love. Like they can, they can see me and Ernie, hugging and kissing, but like in a non-gross way, although they think it's gross anyways. They can see us sitting there, having together by the candle and talking, and see us going on a date, and just genuinely care for each other. So that is the best gift to kids, right?
Definitely.
Now, was the divorce hard on them? I'm pretty sure it was. Like my youngest one still brings it up here and there, but the way how I feel about it, I think brings on to them how they feel about it. Because I feel peace. I feel that it is what it is. Your dad still love you. I love you, and it's okay. It's just gonna work out.
I love that, because the thing that brings up for me is that Faster EFT, again, like you said, it releases the emotion, it clears the emotion. It's not about we don't have a solution. So your children have also seen you, Olga, like moving through a very difficult time and being able to really like flourish in that situation. Now, this is not what every child sees. Like they may see a parent go into a downward spiral because of a difficult situation. And so again, there's what they see growing up is what your imprint. This becomes their experience. So learning Faster EFT yourself, or learning this incredible change tool, is just the gift that you are giving to your children, because it's not about that you won't go through difficult times. Everybody has people in their family die. We all go through difficult times, but this tool gives you the ability to go through those times and thrive out the other side of them. You'll go through your, even with something like that, there may be some grieving, there may be something, but the kids see you come out the outside of everything you experience in life as a coping, as a not just coping, thriving, flourishing adult. And that's what they see as possible for their life. Absolutely. So it's like an incredible gift.
Right. And if you are listening to this interview right now and you are in a stuck marriage, in a difficult marriage, I just wanted to encourage you to seek help, to start having this conversation. There's a part of you believes that you should stay in a marriage for kids. I want to inspire you to consider that you should divorce for kids, right? So I think divorce could be the biggest gift to kids. And I know a lot of people probably going to turn off the interview after this, me saying that. But here's the truth. Like my life's mission was to change generational pattern. We had a generational pattern in our family of women being unhappy and staying in a marriage over and over and over, right?
Yes.
Or beating up men, you know, emotionally. It's been just so much negativity around intimate relationship. The kind of marriage and love I have right now, I did not learn it from my family. Now, it's not to say that, you know, my parents aren't good people. I love them. I think they're wonderful people, and they still love and appreciate, and then they help me a lot, and I always will have this in my heart. But I think it's fair to say that very few of us came from a healthy family where we observe what intimate, you know, lasting relationship look like, right? Where parents are connected. It just wasn't part of that age, right? Period. Survival age, right? The whole world was changing. We just came out of famine and wars, and it was just so much that was going on. They were just learning how to survive. And so right now, I think it's our responsibility to help our kids to be more emotionally intelligent. And so the work that you do, Ilka, I'm just so very grateful. I know you'll help a lot of mamas and a lot of kiddos. So this is fantastic.
Yes, and I must say, like, to work side by side with a parent and child is amazing, but because I will work with children, but like I worked with a mother who asked me initially to work with her children. She was one of the first ones that I kind of went, right, I'm just going to say I want to work with you. And when she worked with me, she really started to realize, you know, how much she was projecting, and really so much. And then the same kind of thing happened, that she was like, I think the children have changed. And I was like, well, definitely they could, because your responses to them are different. And I think children start to feel safer. I mean, children are very intuitive. And children start to feel more self-assured and all of those things. So they definitely could be changes in the kids as well, but mostly the biggest changes are taking place in the adult and how they respond to the child's behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Ilka, tell us, how can we learn more about you and the work that you do? I will make sure to include your website and information that you want to share with our listeners in this interview notes. But tell us what's coming up, what exciting things coming up in your business, and how women who want to reach out and work with you further can learn more.
Well, this is a very timely interview, because our next Empowered Parent 8-week course starts on the 27th of January 2020, if you're watching this video later. So we will be running them, you know, periodically through the year. So if you join the Awakened Parent with Ilka and Joe is my business partner, and if you join that page, then you'll be able to keep updated. The easiest way for you to do it would be to go to the event section, and you'll be able to see the next event that's starting for us. And I will give you our link, though, to go straight to the page to actually join that course. Fantastic. And you become part of a Facebook community too, of other mums and a few dads going through this process.
You courageous dads.
Courageous dads going through this process, and become part of our community. So
fantastic.
If you're doing our courses,
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Ilka, for joining us on this interview series. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here. And you guys make sure to go and check out Ilka's website, and then I'll make sure to include the link so you can go and take a look, see if it's a good fit for you. So she's our go-to expert for all parenting related. Rather than that, again, thank you so much, Ilka, and everybody to listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.